we have a really big shift of energy tomorrow morning. Dwarf planet Sedna is moving into the sign of Gemini from the sign of Taurus. She's been in Taurus since 1965 and is going to move into Gemini, but she will go back and forth a little bit between Gemini and Taurus for till April of 2024. It's a huge shift because Sedna has a huge orbit. She is way out in the dark, cold space, as far out as she's the furthest out body that we've discovered so far, I believe. There may be some new ones being discovered. But I'm going to talk to you about this Sedna ingress a little bit. Of course, we can't really know what it will bring, but Sedna has an 11,408-year orbit, I believe. That was the last I read on the astronomy pages. And so it's an extensive one. So I'm going to share the chart first of all and show you when, here you go. This is Sedna. Sedna is moving into the sign of Gemini tomorrow morning, Thursday, June the 15th at 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time, EDT. And she will, as soon as Sedna moves into Gemini, she'll be conjunct fixed star Alcyone, which I'll talk about as well. One of the Pleiades, one of the Bohemian stars, which means the most powerful fixed stars. So I will talk about that as well. I do want to say as well, though, that Vesta is also on the Pleiades. She is on Algol. So I'll talk about that a little bit as well. And you can see this, this trine here. Today, as I'm recording this, Sedna is at 29 degrees Taurus in this Earth grand trine with Pluto and Ceres. And this is going to bring big shifts materially and so on. Okay, so it's just massive. So I am going to talk to you a little bit from an article written by a man called Alan Clay, an astrologer, who I actually met at a conference a while back, and he has written a book called Sedna Consciousness, which I've actually not had time to read yet, but I've been studying Sedna myself as well. So Sedna has a huge egg-shaped orbit. He says it's actually 11,406 years, so I was 2 years off, and is to be found far beyond all the other planets in our solar system, even at its closest point, which it is moving towards right now. I believe it's actually 72 years away from its exact closest point to the Earth, but considering the orbit of 11,406 years, that's not long. So many astrologers believe that each new planet represents a new aspect or level of consciousness, and that humanity starts to embrace that consciousness from the moment of discovery. And so Sedna represents this weird new outer limit of our consciousness. And this is going to stretch our concepts of reality and pull us to look at ourselves as part of the very big picture. Yeah. So Alan Clay draws the connection with Centaur Pholus to Sedna because they both have a space weathering process that turns the surface of each red. So he says they both have to do with growth and illumination. And he's worked a lot with Sedna in charts. Okay, you can find his website at Dwarf Planet Astrology. He also draws a connection with Ceres, and so do I. I had done that before I read this article. Because they both have internal oceans and they both speak of a nurturing process. And also with Saturn, because their daily rate of spin is the same. So they have the same day-to-day practical perspective and both speak to limits. But Sedna is, of course, the new outer limit of the solar system, right, from our perspective. So we also can look at past cycles with Sedna. All right. So when Sedna was last approaching her closest point to the Earth, that correlated with the end of the last big ice age on Earth and the beginning of agriculture. That was called the Neolithic Revolution, and it involved the wide-scale transition of many human cultures from a lifestyle of hunting and gathering to one of agriculture and settlement, making a growth in population possible. During the following Sedna year, I'll tell you what the Sedna year is. It would transform the small mobile groups of hunter-gatherers that had hitherto dominated human prehistory that we know of into sedentary, non-nomadic societies based on villages and towns. So that was the big shift when Sedna was where it is now in the sky. Okay. That time, societies radically modified their natural environment by means of specialized food crop cultivation with irrigation, deforestation, which allowed extensive surplus food production. And we can kind of see where that's gone to right now. Okay, so, and that's kind of coming up again. These developments provided the basis for densely populated settlements, specialization, division of labor, trading economies, the development of art and architecture that was static, centralized administrations, political structures, hierarchical ideologies, and depersonalized systems of knowledge such as writing were developed after that point, as far as we know. So the whole of our known human history came in the last Sedna year, and that's the orbit, since the Neolithic Revolution. In fact, all of recorded human history has occurred just in the last 6 Sedna months, if he says he's worked out the math. It's about 433,000 Sedna years since Earth was created, and roughly 20 Sedna years since people who are recognizably human first walked the Earth, that we know of. However, I have mentioned in previous videos that there was a discovery recently of human-like beings, not the same as us exactly, but human-like beings 300,000 years ago. So we're constantly finding new things. And of course, there's all these myths about other civilizations before. So, you know, I'm not going to say that this is what we know of history is all there is. Okay, but anyway. So at mid-Sedna year, Sedna was in Libra and approaching the outer limit of her orbital cycle, as far from Earth as possible. And the first fully developed manifestation of the Neolithic Revolution was seen in the Middle Eastern Sumerian cities where it first emerged, also heralding the beginning of the Bronze Age. So you can see that Sedna is really involved with big shifts in ages of how humans live on the Earth, or beings live on the Earth. The movement of Sedna into Scorpio around 3000 BC signaled the rise of the ancient Egyptian civilization with the building of the pyramids and a religion which was in essence a cult of the dead. During the time in Sagittarius, that was the rise of the Greek civilization, which brought forth the early sciences, the arts, and the concept of democracy. And if we jump forward to now, because I'm not going to go through every bit of history, but for about 100 years prior to 1965, the transit of Sedna through Aries saw the world wars of the first half of the 20th century and the growing threat and reality of atomic war. And Aries is associated with will force and war. When Sedna moved into Taurus, where she's now leaving, the emphasis, that was in 1965, the emphasis turned to money and property, to greed, to questions of value, to environmentalism and global warming, and they've become the driving economic factors since 1965. So now Sedna's moving into Gemini, and she will finally move into Gemini in 2024. But just like Pluto's shift into Aquarius, and I'm not reading now, I'm adding my own bits, which is also moving into an air sign from an earth sign, we are getting a glimpse of what's coming and what's being left behind. And we are currently in this digital revolution, the time of AI, the time of a lot of new ideas, a lot of invention, a lot to do with neural networks, and I think also a lot to do with community and coming together and talking to each other. We're moving into the age of air in so many ways, and I'm kind of going off the script again because he was only writing about Sedna. We had the Jupiter-Saturn great conjunction at 0 Aquarius, where Pluto has been sat for a lot of this year so far, 2023. And we've seen the rise of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Apple, didn't they just release kind of these vision things? Or, I haven't followed that. We're seeing these huge technological advancements. And I think there'll be both good and not so good coming from it, like all these things. I don't fear all artificial intelligence like some people do. Maybe I'm wrong, but hey, I don't think they will. I think humans will still think more clearly. But anyway, there's going to be a lot of new inventions. Gemini is the sign about communication, so there's probably going to be a lot of opinions and intellectual debate coming in and new ideas. And to look at the chart again, we've got Sedna moving into Gemini, Pluto moving into Aquarius gradually. Ceres, which moves faster, but I consider Ceres to be kind of the bridge between what we knew and what's coming. Okay, in a nutshell. And Ceres is moving into Libra. And I did just see a post by Cosmic Intelligence Agency about the last ingress charts for the seasons, Aries, Cancer, at the start of the new seasons, all the 0 world points of the cardinal signs. Ceres was at 0 Libra for the last 3, I believe. So she is also bringing in this age of air, but she is moving into Libra, which is about justice and things. So these 3 are moving in tandem. Halmaya's involved too, but we'll leave her for another time. I talk about her and other things. So a little bit more from the article, then I'm going to talk about my own opinions. So yeah, Sedna and moving into Gemini is going to bring all this new invention. Age of air, we're moving into the age of air in many ways. We had the first Libra Venus star point as well with all of this. And we do know that at some point we're moving into the age of Aquarius itself because of the precession of the zodiac. When that begins, I think it's a process. Okay, so this age of air is just coming. And what will it bring? We don't know for sure. We're seeing the artificial intelligence, but we are seeing also the rise of a returned interest in things like Indigenous fire management, in shamanic practices. We're moving back to a lot of the old ideas as well. Sustainable farming, there's a great interest in that. But then there's also been the increase in things like hydroponics and all those kind of things. So new forms of food management, because we realize that this very raping the earth way that we've been doing things is not working, basically. And, you know, that's how these cycles go. So anyway, I'm just going to look at the myth, and then I'm going to talk. So it's going to be a consciousness revolution as well, you know, and a consciousness revolution often is a spiritual revolution as well in some way. So we're moving into this time of massive, massive change. A lot of people have talked about Pluto moving into Aquarius, which of course is important. Ceres moving into Libra is also important. The three and Sedna moving into Gemini is providing the kind of great big background. Now, you know, Ceres, I believe these dwarf planets like Sedna and Eris and other ones like that are way out there, the newly discovered ones in the Kuiper Belt and beyond. I believe they are bringing in this new consciousness, as we talked about at the beginning. So let's have a little look at Sedna's myth. Now, there's a few versions of it. The varying legends kind of give a different story to the background, but Sedna was named after the Inuit goddess of the sea. And Inuits did not believe in divinity. To them, the gods were alive and part of this world, not dead and in heaven as we think of them. In each version of the myth, Sedna's father or the people take her to sea in a boat for various reasons in various stories, and either throw her overboard, or a storm came and she fell overboard. And in the myth, Sedna clings to the boat of her old life and wants to hang on to her old life, but her fingers are chopped off, okay, by her father. And she, in all the versions, she sinks to the bottom of the sea and becomes the sea goddess, worshipped by hunters who depended on her goodwill to supply the food. And in some versions as well, it's said that her fingers became like the seals and the fishes and all the harvest of the ocean. All right. So a lot of the astrological interpretations of Sedna really focus on kind of the unconscious actions, which before she became the goddess, and her father's role in the process. Typical patriarchal culture, they emphasize victimization and sacrificial interpretations. This hanging on to the old way. However, we're changing. We're moving into a new age, right? Just after her discovery, really. And so she transcends to become a goddess. And so I think the message is that there is not hanging on to the old reality, realizing we're moving into new things and opening your mind, Gemini, to look at things differently. My favorite quote: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I'm going to fast forward to some of Alan's keywords for Sedna. So if we are unconscious and living at the unconscious level, that there are generally thought to be kind of 3 levels of consciousness, and we all can shift between them. Nobody's kind of this wonderfully enlightened being, but all the time. But some people are trying to grow spiritually, and some people kind of are rambling around pretty much unconscious. Jeffrey Wolfgreen, in his book on Pluto, calls it the herd. And anyway, at the unconscious level, Sedna can be victimization, alienation, unrelenting trauma and suffering, nurturing resentment, unbearable pressure, and blind spots. And, you know, I'm not saying anybody deserves the trauma, okay, at all. And these are his words, so I kind of don't believe in that one, okay. But some people do seem to get stuck in some patterns and have this gloomy outlook on life. And Gemini is going to help us to change perceptions, okay. On the spiritual path, which probably, you know, a lot of people who are listening to this are probably in that kind of thing most of the time. So radical acceptance, which is my words for what I do with astrology in chart readings. I want people to radically accept who they are and work with their strengths, okay. Also acknowledging how bad things are and starting from there, keeping our hearts open even if things are not going well, nurturing our sense of humor, beating our drum and singing to life, and transcendence. At the spiritually evolved level, which some of us dip into occasionally, spiritual destiny, transcendent peace, nurturing abundance, allowing love and harmony, transpersonal consciousness, and the higher octave of series, nurturing. So they are very closely related, series and Sedna, and I discovered this before I read this. Clay also links the moon to that. So we have the moon, then series, then Sedna. Okay, but Sedna is on a vaster scale. So it's about spiritual nurturing, nurturing humanity on Earth in many ways, but they work in tandem, and they are working in tandem right now as Ceres moves towards Libra and Sedna moves into Gemini. Now, one thing before I look at this fixed star, all right, is the symbol. Look at this. This is the symbol of Sedna. To me, it looks like somebody sitting, you know. I picture Sedna, kind of this transcended person who's transcended her issues and her traumas and things to sit on her throne. To me, this looks like a figure sitting on a throne saying, okay, I'm here now. I'm bringing this new stuff in. I'm teaching you these lessons. All right. So now we'll look at the fixed star. So a little bit about the fixed stars. Alcyone is one of the Bohemian stars, as I said, which is one of the most powerful stars. She's one of the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. Most people have seen or heard of the Pleiades. And again, the 7 sisters were beautiful, strong women in Greek mythology that were placed in the sky to calm the seas and watch over sailors. And here we have Sedna, the goddess of the oceans. Okay. In Celtic traditions, the Pleiades would be seen rising during the season of autumn, a time synonymous with celebrating and honoring the cycle of death. Therefore, the 7 sisters became closely linked to death, loss, and grief. That's like Ceres to me. But were also believed to bring comfort to those in mourning. So we're building a theme up here. Even though the fixed stars, some of them have been given terrible kind of readings over time, we're bringing out this thing about acceptance of the cycles and the bigger cycles of change and of life change, life and death, of old cycles, of civilizations, and so on and so forth. The 7 sisters were known to bring strong feminine energy, but also hardship, and ruled over the cycle of death too. And, you know, traditionally, the feminine, the female, has been the death doula, the nurse, nursing people through death, helping people to accept their death. But it's not purely just a woman's role in these changing times. a lot of, we all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. But anyway, the Pleiades sit at around 28 to 29 Taurus and 0 Gemini. And whenever there was in traditional astrology, whenever there was a planet or alignment close to this degree, it was seen as a bad omen. However, you know, I believe, and I believe many other people have come to this realization, this is likely due to the way feminine energy has been interpreted under patriarchal times. And when I say patriarchal times, I mean that top-down, hierarchical rule, you know, push down masculine energy. It's not all men. But we know today that feminine energy is not inferior, unlucky, or weaker than masculine energy. It's just different and necessary in its own way, and we all have some of each within us. Many believe nowadays that the highly advanced feminine energy held by the Pleiades has the ability to bring deep healing and connection into our lives rather than bad omens. Pleiadian energy is also, and I have friends that channel the Pleiadians, online friends. Pleiadian energy is also associated with building healthy communities, learning to live off the land in a harmonious way, and creating a sense of love and longing. There are many mystics, healers, and astrologers that claim to receive downloads from Pleiadian beings. So, you know, I talked about that already. And they're known for their empathic qualities and their ability to shine their light on the darkest corners of humankind. Now, if you think about that, when they were sent up to, they were here to calm the oceans, the seven sisters sent up to the, yeah, anyway, you get the idea. So this is big, that Sedna has been going over the other Pleiadian fixed stars for the last few years, back over 28, 29 degrees of Taurus, and is now moving to 0 Gemini, where we have Alcyone, which is the brightest star in the Pleiades. Some view her as the female equivalent of Sirius, the dog star. So Alcyone, like Sirius, is a high vibrational star that's extremely powerful and potent. You could see Alcyone as the spiritual moon, because Sirius is often seen as the spiritual sun. Alcyone is also said to bring waves of feminine energy to Earth as a way to remind us to tap into more of these qualities. So again, remember, this is beyond gender. This represents our ability to go with what's described as feminine archetypal energy, going with the flow, listening and trusting to intuition, tapping into our deeper senses, favoring nourishment over action, favoring the heroine's journey that goes within rather than the hero's journey that is outward and conquering, which is why I follow the heroine's journey on my Venus retrograde class. By the way, I do have a preview call June the 19th for that class, but I will be giving out great information on the preview call. I'm going to put the link for the preview call and the class in the show notes, because this Venus retrograde is a big part of this as well. And I'll be talking about that later. So it's about being patient, compassionate, and about practicing self-love. You guys know that I'm always talking about self-love, but it's not just about loving, you know, the shiny bits of ourselves. This is about learning to love it all, and that radical, deep acceptance. So we can see that this fixed star, this potent fixed star, and this new, really powerful outer limits dwarf planet Sedna are bringing in this energy of deep acceptance. Okay. So it's about the shadows of life and the darker emotions as well as the lighter emotions and things. Okay. And I think that's it I want to say, because I'm just looking at the notes and things. But anyway, yeah. So during this time in Gemini, Sedna is going to pass over Alcyone and then go back over again. And then she will be heading back into, oh, where am I now? Here she is. She'll be retrograding back into Taurus to finish up her journey in Taurus on November the 22nd, 2023. And then she'll go back into Gemini on April the 27th, 2024. And that will be her final ingress into the sign of Gemini, where she will be for 43 years. Okay, so we've kind of got this 43-year period for creating new inventions, new ideas, and for bringing in this more feminine kind of yin energy into the world and the planet. And there's been other things that that really indicate that this is coming. So, you know, it's not like I'm saying this just for Sedna. All these things are working together. Ceres is working in tandem with, and so is Pluto, of course. So with Ceres by 2024, Ceres will actually, Ceres will be catching up to Pluto. And there is a day where Ceres, Venus, and Pluto are all conjunct at 0 Aquarius, December the 7th, 2024, which I've been eyeing for a long time. So I might look at that date in a second, but just to say that Ceres is here in Capricorn when Sedna finally moves into the sign of Gemini for good, well, for 43 years. And Ceres is conjunct, the great conjunction of January the 12th, 2020, that kind of launched crazy in this world with pandemics and January the 6th and all this kind of stuff that's been going on. But it was kind of at the start of the pandemic. So we can see when things kind of went really haywire. And she's kind of back to where she was then. So she'll be, yeah, you get the idea. So I'm just going to, before we finish, I'm going to show you Ceres conjunct Pluto. Well, that's actually December the 8th, because Venus is conjunct. Venus is at 0 degrees the day before. They're all at 0 degrees one day before. So let's move it back to December the 7th. You can see that. Look at all of this. At that point, Sedna is almost exactly conjunct Alcyone. This is a huge point, and they're entwined to each other. All these, the three, Sedna, Pluto, and Ceres, they're in this grand trine right now, today, as I record this on June the 14th. And by December the 7th, 24, they're going to be in this air trine at 0 degrees, which is the new beginnings, new starts, all that kind of stuff. Also, the nodes are about to move back to the world point of 0, Aries and Libra. So they're not quite there on that day, but they're very close. And another thing as well, oh my goodness, look at this chart. This day, I've been eyeing this day for such a long time. I kind of think this day is going to reach kind of quite a point of resolution in many ways. Interestingly, it's right after the next US presidential election, so we'll see what that brings. But this is Mars at 6 Leo on that day is the North Node of the USA, and it's also the discovery degree of Centaur Chariklo, who I think has been holding space for healing. You really cannot make this stuff up. And I'm going to add Chariklo into the chart, because where is she on that day? She's at 14 Aquarius, sextile to the sun, square to Black Moon Lilith, kind of at the midpoint of Aquarius too. And Melanie Reinhardt has said, who she's worked with Chariklo right from her discovery in 1997, has said that Chariklo is leading the way into that age of Aquarius. And I kind of agree. Well, Mars will be at her discovery degree, but you know, I could go on and on and on. It's a big shift. Sedna going into Gemini. You know, you may not feel it kind of on the day, but you know, just as when Pluto went into the sign of Aquarius, we suddenly had all these AI sites and all these chat sites kind of launching, and now there's all courses about how to use ChatGPT to help you with your business and things like that. Then there's the shadow of it, of plagiarism, of course, as well. But some people are using ChatGPT. I don't know so much about the art for quite good things as well. So we'll see. But I actually want to look at the Chandra symbol for one Gemini. I forgot to write Gemini. Ooh. So I'm going to read all John Sandbach's symbols, because that 0 Gemini mark is clearly going to be a very important part. And John Sandbach, SANDBACH.net, he channeled a lot of symbols. He channeled the Chandra symbols, and he re-channeled the Sabian symbols, and actually called them the Pleiadian symbols. So let me read you some of these symbols for that first degree of Gemini, because when I read it, I was like, phew. So the Omega symbol is a naked man, or human, I'm going to say, on an ice floe, feels no cold. It's kind of like we're floating on this ice of change. And we're kind of naked, moving into this new age. So he says here, you have the ability to go where few can go, to travel in your mind the farthest reaches of the spiritual realms. Whatever prevents other people from going further doesn't keep you from your explorations. You are always willing to look beyond boundaries, to be in communication with places usually thought of as being off limits. Now, to my mind, because it's Sedna, this is speaking to human consciousness. Now, the Chandra symbol is knots in a cord. They are a message in code. And he says, in any line of communication, there may come places where the energy becomes blocked. This degree has a direct and clear sensing of where these are. And even though one is trying to communicate something, the places of misunderstanding are always trying to communicate something else, something deeper. And of course, we would like to avoid these snags to get beyond them. But this degree senses that there are important things to learn from the gnarled, garbled messages, garbled areas of message sending. It's in those places that fear and limitations lurk, and it is there that those fears and limitations can be uncovered, unsnagged, untied, and released. So you're going to unknot a lot of old thinking, old beliefs as well. That's, you know, all of these things. So, I'm going to just tell you the Pleiadian symbol, which is the rechanneled Sabian symbol. He doesn't give a real unpacking of it, but it just really hit me in the eye. So Deep in the sea, a mirror watches the sky. So we are mirroring the sky, okay? And we are water, really. You know, on Earth, water is kind of the most prevalent element on the surface. It's the most prevalent element on us. And so watch the sky, watch these sky movements for where we're going, for what's happening. It's a huge shift, people. So, you know, I'll just stop the share and say, you know, just pay attention to what's coming your way. Do the work for radical, deep acceptance and the spiritual growth, and really lean into being open-minded, which is very Gemini as well, and to learning how to unknot and unpack those old ways of thinking and the old ideas, and to move into new ways. So for now, I will see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe, I forgot to say.